Right, establish the connection, and there we are. Okay, Spencer, we're on. Look to this, fellow citizens, for comfort and companionship, as here we meet again, through the sound of static-infected sound waves, fizzling, cracking, and straining to get to you while feeding off our mighty generators, sucking, pulsing, and never satisfied. But for all the struggles we face, for every broken, boarded-up building and dilapidated walkway, there is strength. Strength in our words, our art, our people, our palace. Tonight on the program, I'll be giving you the inside look into one of the most secure and secretive yet open places aboard our dear Leviacity. Do not strain yourselves to get up, because you don't want to miss any details this nautical dawn. Here, and live from outside the very place itself, accompany me as we stroll through the golden-painted halls of the Grand Palace and discover what lies ahead for us, all here on the Grand Azavin radio broadcast. Good evening, dear listeners. I'm your host, Max Becker, and that introduction was no fable. It's true. I've been granted access by a palace official to get the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to go inside the main wing of the Grand Palace. I'm aware many younger Azavinians might be listening tonight, so, my dears, I advise you to take your slates and begin writing what you hear. This might just be the closest you get to walking upon those beautiful tiled floors for yourselves. But, as usual, I'm getting ahead of myself. Stay tuned for more on that later. For now, let's get on to a new section of the show I created last night. As most of you will know, Dr. Kanan has been the subject of some controversy recently. If you don't know who he is, he's a planer that entered the city last week and brought with him such valuable knowledge that our palace officials have allowed him to stay for an extended time. It's shocking, but he has been admittedly useful. For example, he brought with him the phonograph cylinders. Not many exist nowadays, and making them is incredibly hard to do. If I recall correctly, the last successful one made here took a year to produce, due to, as always, lack of materials. But why am I going over this? Well, I had the idea in last night's show to use some of these cylinders. Now that Dr. Kanan has shown us how to produce them with alternate materials, the factory children have started to make them in great quantities, allowing you to send in audio responses to my nightly question. Therefore, this new section of the show is something I like to call discussion time. Each night at the end of our program, I will ask you, my fellow citizens, a question. After this question, you can send me your audio through a phonograph cylinder, and I will play it back in this section of the next show. It sounds a little bit convoluted, yes, but don't you worry. All modern ideas eventually catch on and become the norm. So, last night I asked you what we should do with the Eastern Pier. Fishermen and lovers once strolled down its lengthy walkway, either to work or to kiss as the sun went down. It was a magical place, but due to a recent storm, this once lively jetty is now but a ghost of what once stood there. Twisted metallic beams strain to hold up the heavy walkway as the rusted legs of the structure stand firm but unpredictable. As of last week, Violet West from the Azavin Safety Council proposed its demolition after anything reusable could be saved from it. This has caused somewhat of a divide in the city, as many fishermen still stand by it being a place where only the best cod can be effectively caught, not to mention its romantic side. The point is, this place is one of memories and a staple in our city. Would it be right to demolish it? Our first opinion comes from a friend of mine, Jeremiah, who says he lives down on District Road.
We will probably keep it anyway. It's a hidden piece of glory anyway. Although, I will probably cover it secret, like, why it's so close. I'm not entirely sure if I could do that though, but I could investigate. It should hold something, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure what I have to say about it.
An interesting response there, Jeremiah. We discussed this over breakfast once in the Watchtower Tavern, I believe, and you said the same thing. Let's investigate, etc. Now, you know I wouldn't dare stamp on your sense of wonder in our city, but I really don't feel there's much to be explored out there. It's a simple pier with a simple function. That, and it's extremely dangerous to go on it. I like the idea of keeping it, but we must present more reasons why. Perhaps our next cylinder here can give us a deeper point of view. This one is from our wonderful Sylvia. You all know her, and what a responsible woman she is, so this should be an interesting and well thought out response.
Hello Max. My name is Sylvia Grease-Swanson. I am a big fan of your show. I tune in every night after work. I work as a teacher down at the local school. We teach many subjects there, but the most important subject we teach, in my opinion, is the history of Azavin. It is important to learn Azavin's history, because we can learn how we got here today and use the lessons of our past to adapt them to today. This is especially important with the riots between the overgrounders and the undergrounders, as well as our own grand city falling apart before us. The East Pier is especially important to my personal history. I do not think it should be reopened because people could get injured or die, which I don't want to happen. I want people to get injured and die. People should not get injured or die. Thank you, Max, for letting me have something to do every night after work.
Sylvia, thank you for that response. Might I recommend that you visit the city doctor, though? He might be able to help with those sudden swings of mood you seem to have. But that aside, she has a good point. It is a dangerous place, although for many, that rusted shell of what was once there is still romantic in its dereliction. It may be aged, but the connections are still young and fresh in many citizens' minds, which is a good thing most of the time. Thank you, Sylvia, for your response, and it's always a pleasure to hear from you. Continue to fill young minds with the history of Azavin and inspire those that walk upon her, because as we all say before our city meetings, Azavin is strong, Azavin is grand, Azavin is forever. Oh, gets me choked up just thinking about it. Anyway, let's listen to our final cylinder before our first break of the evening. This one is a little battered and came in a dark red stone box. It didn't come with any description or name, it just turned up at the door. So let's take a listen.
Get rid of the pier. Get rid of the pier. We can know where the stones are. We can harvest the piers. And then make a shelter in case of emergency. Make another one. If we already have one. Make one. Make a shelter. Why is there one?
Well, that was unexpected. I'm not sure what was occurring there, but I had better not discuss it any further. We'll be right back with the headlines and my experience inside the Grand Palace after this first advertisement break. It may be a little lengthy, everyone, as I need to report that last recording to the police. But be sure to stay tuned, because you don't have any other choices.
The breakfast shaving cream supreme leaves your face so smooth and clean. Cresta, BLANCA. Cresta Blanca. Cresta Blanca. Hello, everybody. Hello. Hello is the shampoo that glorifies your hair. So hello, everybody. Hello. For softer, lively curls and brighter, sparkling hair. So hello, everybody. Hello. Hello, shampoo. Hello.
Billy Brown, the smoothest, coolest guy in town. The chicks all seem to dig his jive. Hey, tell us, Bill, how can we arrive? It's easy, Jack. Any gal gets sent. When you flash a smile by Pepsodent, you'll wonder where the yellow went when you brush your teeth with Pepsodent.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Ahem. My apologies for that slight bit of unprofessionalism, listeners, but after our last recording, I simply couldn't ignore the possibility of someone being in danger. The palace has also advised me to check the audio cylinders before playing them aloud for the entire city to hear, as we wouldn't want anything untoward cropping up. My greatest apologies to our leaders and officials. I promised to the Shoutrar that I would never have played it if I had known what was on there beforehand. I pledge to stand by you in your decisions and am grateful to walk upon our streets. I am immensely sorry to all those listening tonight. Right. Moving on. It's time for our headlines. As expected, with the wonderful weather at this time of year, many tend to go swimming down by the docks. This was interrupted today, though, when Mr. and Mrs. Green's pet toucan decided to land on some people's heads while they were talking to each other in the water. The bird looked, with a curious manner, at all of them as they splashed water around to try and scare the colourful bird away. But he just kept hopping from one person's head to another with a kind of joyful bounce. I was walking along Palace Pass while this was going on, and it was hilariously adorable. Secondly, tomorrow is Occupation Day, where our young join the workforce to ensure the survival and continuation of our world. The city needs each one of you children, so whatever card you overturn tomorrow, be sure to do it quickly. You need to get to work. As always, I will be covering this event in great detail, so all you younger brothers and sisters out there can be ready for your special day next year. That's all for today's headlines, so let's move swiftly on to the main subject of the program, my visit to the Grand Palace. Midday, on Braxton Street. The sun was hot and the air humid as I stepped outside from the cool, shaded comfort of my home. I closed the door and blocked it. Youthfully making my way down the stairs, I had a fluid bounce in my step, just due to the sheer excitement of what awaited me today. Stepping onto the wooden planked pavement, my bare feet were warmed to a high, although bearable temperature. I turned to my left and began walking, passing by the decadent Guild Street with its collapsed and crumbling buildings, one of which was being worked on by a group of topless strongmen. They were busy putting support beams into place, as the top level of the police station had started to lean forward over the main road, peering down on all those that walk below and under it. I carried on, though, as the wooden planks eventually tore apart and splintered beneath my feet as they transitioned to a cobblestoned road. We know it's a privilege if you still have a pair of shoes, but in my opinion, those who do are missing out on feeling the city. Being barefoot brings us that much closer to her, in a way that warms my heart and mind just thinking about it. Feeling every crack and bump and break in our pathways is far better than trotting upon them through worn-out boots. But I went on, down through Braxton Street, then right onto the street with no name, and straight down to the Palace Pass. Arriving on this long road that runs the length of the Grand Palace, I met a boy and a girl who were officials' assistants. Not the officials themselves, of course. No, they are always working, no matter the time of day or night. They greeted me with the Azavinian greeting. You know the sort. The boy and girl were Kesey Sharp and Ember Oakley. So, if their parents are listening tonight, don't you worry. They treated me very well. They wore 2 long robes of a dark brown, almost black colour, with golden tassels on the ends of the arms and around the feet. The Azavinian citizen's brooch pinned on in line with the centre of their chest. I showed them mine, and Ember promptly said, "Thank you, Max, we know who you are." I replied with, "Of course. Always good to do it properly, though." Both of them smiled at each other and looked excited to be meeting the voice from the radio. I'm not sure we'd ever really spoken face to face before. They pulled down a tall and slightly rusted ladder, which came down with a mechanical clunk as it locked into place. We climbed it to get up to palace level. Approaching the main doors was something I never thought I'd do in my lifetime. Yet, here I was, standing before 2 great wooden doors that looked down on me with their powerful and fearsome size. Ornate, circular designs covered the faces of these doors, as Ember went over to an old ship's wheel that was to the left and began turning. With a thunderous, mechanical sound from inside, the colossal doors opened inward. Only slightly, so that we 3 could slip inside. They asked me to go first. Slipping sideways through the doors, I was awestruck by the sight inside. My feet seemed stuck to the heavily polished black and white tiled floor, my eyes fixated on the impressively open corridor ahead of me. I didn't even notice the massive sound of the doors closing behind me, as I was too impressed by the sheer size and length of this corridor. Dark green wooden doors with meticulously crafted brass handles lined the walls left and right, leading to one of the many tall arched windows that look out at the endless sea. The 2 teenage assistants behind me probably knowing how I was feeling from their first experience stepping into this place. Circular white marble pillars separated each door from the next, as the ceiling was covered by a pitch-black darkness, seemingly making the corridor go on forever upwards. The whole room was a warm orange, as the subtly flickering lamps feeding from our generators lit the place with a summer evening glow. Still staring at the corridor in front of me, taking everything in, I was brought back into reality by Kesey, who snapped his fingers twice in front of my face. I blinked and looked down at him in his black robe with the golden tassels as he spoke. "Welcome to the Grand Palace. These doors over here on the right individually lead to the public meeting chamber, officials' offices, and dome room." He gestured to each door with his whole hand as the robe hung from his arm. "And here on the left, Safety Council entrance and exit, staircase to the weather towers, and Grand Library." Before he could finish asking me what I wanted to see first, I exclaimed to him, "The towers! I must see inside the weather towers!" Kesey glanced at Ember for a moment, and said, "Sorry, Max, that's the only thing the officials can't let you see today. They need some structural repairs and, well, the officials don't want you to get hurt." Disappointed but understood, I left the topic alone as they led me through the first door on my right, which led to the Grand Library. It opened and closed with a creak as I stepped through into the most important room in the whole city. Stepping into this place was a truly important moment for me. It was really really beautiful. I can't. I won't ever find the words to describe the respect I have for our leaders, as they care for us so intensely. The equality system that was put in place by the Chatra is unrivaled, and saved us from the ocean below. Now, I was standing at the very place where the last remaining accounts of the former world and the foundations of our great city were kept. At least a few thousand books were stored here, each one slotted next to another, with every meticulously crafted spine binding together the pages of who and what we were, and what we would become. The black and white checkered tiles continued into here, and the heavenly orange glow did so too. As the two assistants led me down one of the cavernous hallways lined with books left and right, they explained that these books were thought of by the palace as the most important books in the world, because they were the very last in the world. The deepers who dive below to the surface cannot bring up any books, as the water had consumed their pages, just like it did our great-great-grandmothers and grandfathers. Our footsteps echoed as we strolled, dust particles moving slowly through the light and becoming visible for only a second, disappeared when not focused on. We passed by a gated wing of the library, a place shadowed in pitch-black darkness, I asked, "What's down here?" Ember responded, "We don't know. It's officials only that way." I nodded at them, and we carried on. As we got to the end of the passage, they both took some creased brown leather gloves out from inside their robes and put them on. If those of you younger listeners don't know what leather is, it's a very rare material. Only the palace officials and assistants can use it for crucial things. Anyway, they slid their hands into the gloves carefully and proceeded to take a small book out from one of the shelves. Ember held the delicate and stained pink book as Kesey opened it, slowly and carefully. The cover made a crinkling sound as it moved aside to reveal the first page. Kesey proceeded to explain the book, telling me it was a journal written by a girl named Lauren Nightingale, one of the first ever to enter Azavin prior to the flood. She details her arrival in Azavin at the now abandoned burnt Foster dock, where the citizens were apparently hoisted up to city level from the former world below. It was chilling reading the first paragraph alone, knowing just how derelict that place is now, yet reading an idyllic and almost utopian description of it, especially considering it was written only a day or so before the howling. But no matter. I didn't see any of that, as the assistants closed the journal and returned it with great care to its reserved space on the shelves. They then led me back to the main hallway, and allowed me to exit by way of the safety council door. With a sincere happy mood and a fulfilled smile, they both bid me farewell as I stepped back out onto the palace pass, looking out at the blue horizon and remembering just how important it is that we continue to respect what the ingenious Shoutra devised for us all those years ago. A place of freedom and respect. A place of true equality, which will ensure our survival. And with that, my fellow citizens, it's time for another advertisement break, where our local inventors may spread the news about their latest products.
Is the sweetheart you married the husband you expected him to be? Has the war created new problems for you in your marriage? To answer these and other personal problems brought in by your friends and neighbors, ARID presents John J. Anthony, founder of the famed Marital Relations Institute, in a brand new program of daily sessions of kindly and helpful advice.
Tasty is tempting to your appetite. Creamy, wholesome candy, try a luscious bite. Vitamins are hiding in this candy bar. Fat, thin, and bigger, linger where they are. Children like this lovely, creamy food delight. Let them eat it daily, every morning, noon and night. You will see them growing stronger every day. Taking each the candy way.
Welcome back to the broadcast, everyone. Before I leave you with a weather and tides report from the Grand Palace's mighty weather towers, it's time to ask the nightly question. As it's occupation day tomorrow, what is your dream job? Or if you're not a youngster tuning in, what do you parents hope that your child will get? Send in your answers on a phonograph cylinder, and I'll be sure to play them tomorrow night. Don't forget to say who you are, because we'll want to see if you got lucky. And finally, here's a report of the weather, before it's time to sleep and prepare for tomorrow's thrilling occasion. The towers report a clear day tomorrow, with minor rain clouds passing overhead. But don't you worry, children, these clouds won't spoil the occupation day. Towards the late evening, it may get a little stormier though, so it might be a good idea to stay indoors once you can clearly see the northern star, just in case things start to pick up. According to the tide reports, we are due for high tides that may reach the lower levels of the city, but will only really cause some issues for those in the underground. Pah! Not that we're worried about them. And that concludes tonight's show, everyone. I do so appreciate you tuning in, and let us finish united with the last lines of our city pledge. Azavin is strong. Azavin is grand. Azavin is forever. Good night.